Hi everyone, welcome back to FCK Ingenious Reviews. I'm your host Amit. Thank you for watching as always. We are going to review the final season of the hit show Yellowstone today. It just finished up this past Sunday night. I know this show has a huge fan base, a very varied fan base, and I know there's a lot of opinions out there about how the show is and what it's been doing lately. When the show started off, I was a big fan. I'm from a rural area myself. I'm from rural Georgia, and to me, it's always interesting to watch stories about rural people portrayed, in Hollywood, basically. Not that rural Georgia and rural Montana are exactly the same, but you still have a lot of similarity as far as life, kind of away from the city, right? So for me, it was very interesting to always watch the show, and there were definitely some things that resonated with me that they covered, and especially the first couple of seasons I really enjoyed. I thought it was really gripping. I would actually call this show a soap opera above anything else. It's Days of Our Lives for dudes. That's the best way to put it. And there's nothing wrong with that. Anyone can enjoy a soap opera. It's not like it has to just be for ladies. Guys like all kinds of stuff too, so there's no shame in it. But I was curious if by the end of the season, by this series finale, if they would do the characters justice and what their arcs would end up being. And well, let's get into that, and let's give this a grade to begin with. So my final rating for the final season would be 3 out of 10 stars, or in school grade terms, about a D. I didn't think this was good. Going back to part 1 of season 6 and part 1 of season 5 and going to all of season 4, you could definitely feel that slide in the quality of the show. It really lost its way, I felt, after season 3, I would say. But it could still be entertaining in spots. But the problem with this season is they kind of completely gave up on any kind of character arcs or anything really, giving these characters a proper resolution. I know not having Kevin Costner for the final half season was difficult, and that's a difficult adjustment for any group of writers and showmakers to make. But it felt like they didn't even really try to, compensate for Costner being there. They just kind of went off on some crazy tangent of a storyline. By the way, spoiler alerts, this is filled with spoilers. So if you haven't watched the final season yet, the finale yet, then, come back and watch this review after you've done that. I don't want to ruin the show for anyone. But yeah, continue on. Instead of showing him being murdered by some crazy scheme and all that, if you had to get rid of him, just have him have a heart attack in his bed, we bury him, and then we continue on with the characters. Their choice of how to get rid of John Dutton's character was played out terribly. Could it have been done well? Sure. I mean, if the writing room had been a little bit sharper, maybe they could have turned that into something. But in the end, it was just a mess. The entire arc of John Dutton, his killing, them trying to figure it out, and how it involved Jamie and his biggest girlfriend, I think Sarah. It was all a gigantic mess. It was a big mistake. So I think they really screwed up there. The character of Beth is a microcosm of the show as a whole. She was an interesting concept at the beginning, an interesting character where they could have taken her a lot of places and done a lot of things with her story. Hers could have definitely been one of the most interesting arcs on the show, but the real problem is they never did anything with her. If you remember, I think it was from the first episode, but maybe it was one of the second or third episodes, but it was right there at the beginning. There's that scene where she goes in her room and just screams in anguish, in agony, basically because she's so frustrated with her life. She's in so much pain from her past, and you can see the male members of her family in their own rooms, sitting there listening, and just kind of letting it go. There was so much potential for the character, within that scene, after that scene, and they never built on that. By the end of the show, she was still that same broken person. I know there's this entire economy built on Beth being, a badass. It's like, woo, yeah, she's a badass, woo! That's kind of the entire, arc of Beth. And while I guess maybe that makes some people happy and sells some merchandise, she's a terrible character. She doesn't grow at all. She doesn't face any consequences for her actions. The best TV shows, they always show character growth. As I cite it all the time, The Sopranos, you see that in Mad Men, all those prestige TV shows, Breaking Bad, you saw the characters grow for good or bad. It doesn't have to be one way or the other. And you always saw that their actions have consequences. And unfortunately, with Beth, we never see that. Basically, it's Beth acts like a badass. Some stuff happens to her. She gets beat up. And then she heals up and it starts all over again. That's basically Beth's story from season 1 to the final episode. Her story with Jamie, her brother, was just extremely disappointing because everyone could see that, ending coming from a mile away. And I was like, God, I hope they don't do this. I can understand, of course, everyone wanted to see Jamie get his comeuppance for his involvement, in his father's death and all that. Okay, I get that. But Beth is not a hero, and she's not even an anti-hero, I would say. She's just a broken husk of a human being with nothing to really offer as far as a character goes. And that's a real shame because there was a lot of potential there. I mean, in the end, what are they going to do with her character? I hear they're going to make a spin-off of her and Rip. But honestly, what are they going to show there? What's there to show about her story? What is she going to do? Get more fights, get beat up, and the cycle continues endlessly? There's nothing to go on there. That's certainly not a show I'd be interested in watching because there's no story there. There's no potential arc there. So I hope they don't make that, but they probably will just because they'll make a lot of money. But yeah, the character of Beth is a colossal waste of potential, and I would say it's the biggest failure of the show overall. And on the other side, you have Monica, Casey's wife, who she had that same potential. You could see it in season 1, and they started to build on that. There was an arc there that was being followed, especially I think it was season 2 where she goes off and teaches at the college, at the university, and we see character growth. We see her expanding beyond the horizons that she was otherwise given in life, and it was great to see. But after season 3, she just kind of became Casey's tag along wife. We never really saw her in anything besides just hey, she's in the background and she's either kissing Casey to her son's disgust, or she's just saying, hey, is this the right choice? Okay, if you say so. There was nothing there after season 3. That's a real shame because Monica could have been potentially the most interesting character on the show. There's a lot of potential there that went to waste too. But the real shame I feel there is, whereas Beth was never a character, there was never any chance of her developing, after really, the first season. With Monica, you had a lot of potential, and unfortunately, it's a real shame that nothing ever came of that. Jamie's character and his death in the end, like I said earlier, you could see coming from a mile away. They telegraphed that one pretty hard. The unfortunate thing is, after I think it was the 3rd episode where his girlfriend Sarah gets clipped while driving in her car, and you thought, okay, maybe they can do something with this, but they really didn't do anything. They didn't do anything with Jamie this season other than have him play basically Jamie in a couple of short scenes per episode. It would have been interesting to see if he could have maybe grown from what he experienced with his father's death, how it happened, and how his involvement in it happened. You could say that, yeah, he knew, of course, what Sarah would do, but he didn't fully comprehend maybe the ramifications of what he was asking for. Maybe there's some willful denial there. There's all kinds of possibilities and theories you could go off of for his character. But none of that was explored. It was just like, all right, here's Jamie being Jamie, a total pushover, especially when it comes to women. He's pushed over by all women. And okay, he gets killed by Beth in the end, like a badass, like Beth is supposed to do. And it was just, it felt like a complete waste of time. The entire Beth and Jamie arc was awful because it could have been interesting, especially, we learned that, Jamie has Beth have that abortion that, permanently damages, I believe, it was her ovaries, or I forget exactly what they did. I think they removed them. I don't remember. But whatever, she can't have babies. But there's some really interesting potential there. There could have been some real pathos there, for the mining between the two. But instead, it's just like, hey, we got to have them fight. We got to bring a tire iron to this and beat each other up. And it was terrible to watch. It was the laziest possible outcome for the show. I was actually going to give the season like a little higher of a grade, but the finale was so bad I actually dropped the grade even more. I was debating between 4 and 5 stars. I was probably going to go with 4 stars, just because it's the nostalgia factor. But the finale was so bad that I knocked the overall season grade to a 3. And that fight scene between Jamie and Beth was just that was the end for me. It was like, okay, this is so poorly done, and this is such a lack of intent on the writer's part, on the showrunner's part, of wanting to do something with this character, of wanting to grow them, and it just about summed up, the final season for me in a nutshell. The B stories, involving the cowboys, their exploits in Texas. If we were in the earlier parts of the show still in some of the earlier seasons, I think that stuff would have been more interesting, getting to know more about them and all that, seeing their lives. But when you only have 6 episodes left in the show, you really can't be spending your time on that stuff. Especially when your main characters aren't accomplishing anything and there's nothing happening. So, in a vacuum, I would enjoy the stories about the cowboys and just watching them do their thing, because that is a lot of fun to me. But when you're trying to accomplish wrapping up a show, especially one with as many storylines and plot lines as Yellowstone has had, it was just misplaced, spending that much time on those characters. The characters were interesting. It's unfortunate that they killed Colby, Teeter's boyfriend. That was a needless death. That's just, we're running out of ideas, so we need to start killing characters, which that's what they were doing for most of the second season. Let's just start killing off characters because we don't have anything else to go off of. That's usually a telltale sign of a dying show when characters themselves start dropping like flies. But it was intended to provide kind of like some pathos, seeing Colby die and whatnot. We're supposed to feel, the cowboys' pain, but unfortunately, it was so rushed. It was so just random that it didn't deliver that, unfortunately. And if you just have a bunch of characters dying, it's hard to feel something. With John Dutton, I didn't feel anything like that. He's died. He was murdered. He's not in the show anymore. It was like, okay, whatever. I didn't really feel anything, and that's a shame. That tells you something that you haven't constructed a character well to this point, where your main character dies and you're like, oh well, nobody cares. That's a shame. It's bad writing, but that's what the show is. And other main characters like Rip, same thing. It's just boring to watch him. There's nothing interesting about Rip whatsoever. Maybe some of his flashback scenes as a kid were, of course, interesting, and seeing how he became the man he did. But the problem is, the man he is now is completely boring and uninteresting. He's just a hollow shell of manliness. There's nothing more to him, and that's another shame, because I think in the hands of a good writer, you could explore that character and mine it for a lot of interesting stories. Because obviously Rip's been through a lot, and I don't think any of us would mind learning more about him and seeing kind of what made him him. But it's just kind of like, oh, he's the tough, silent cowboy, and that's all he is. And I mean, sure, maybe we appreciate those kinds of stereotypes, but they're not very interesting. They don't make for good TV. So Rip in the end was just like a complete letdown. In the end, I would say, the show is the inverse of those prestige shows I mentioned earlier, Mad Men, Breaking Bad, Sopranos, where those shows were centered around great writing, great character development, long drawn-out character arcs where we saw characters develop over multiple seasons. In this show, we got none of that. It's a soap opera, and soap operas, things tend to stay the same. They're static. The characters are what they were in episode 1, and that's what people usually want out of the soap opera. They just want the entertainment. And like I said earlier, there's nothing wrong with that. If I were to watch the show again, I would just watch seasons 1 through 3, and then end it there. I wouldn't even bother with season 4 or season 5, because the soap opera kind of lost its luster at that point. But seasons 1 through 3, even as a soap opera, it's entertaining, and I would watch that anytime just because it's fun TV. But overall, this is not a good show after the first few seasons. The writing's bad and the storytelling is really bad. It's just, I will give Taylor Sheridan credit. He created some interesting caricatures. He was never really able to develop them into full characters, but between the possibility of what those characters could become and the beautiful scenery and that kind of yearning for that rustic lifestyle, I mean, I give him credit for creating this highly watchable soap opera. So overall, I mean, I would recommend anyone to watch the first 3 seasons of Yellowstone. I think it's a good show to watch for that. Just you want sometimes you want entertainment, and there's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that. But I can't recommend this show as a quality show that this is elevated writing and this is elevated entertainment. It's not that. But if you just want something fun to watch for a little bit, why not? All right, that's it for this review. I really appreciate all of you joining us to watch this, to listen to this. If you have any thoughts and feelings about that finale, about the final season, please let me know down below. We always try to listen to all opinions, on here. Maybe you loved it, and that's okay. I have no complaints about someone enjoying something that I don't. That's fine. But if you want to tell me your side of the story, I'm always interested to hear that. But I appreciate all of you watching, and we'll do another one soon. Thank you so much.